All right, I got your email. On one of those pictures, the first one I looked at, it said area of a trapezoid, and you had something kind of like this written on there, or it had it written on there. It showed this is base 1 on the top, our B1 is base 1, then the bottom was B2 is base 2. And this was talking about the actual main trapezoid here. They had another trapezoid of the same size upside down next to it to show that two trapezoids together make one long parallelogram. And that comes into play when we're looking at the area formula of a trapezoid. This line here, the dotted line, is the height of the trapezoid. And these three numbers, or these three things, three numbers, h equals height, are what we need when we're trying to find the area of a trapezoid. We need the top base, the bottom base, and the height. And these are both called base, pretty much because if we flipped our trapezoid, it could sit on this one or it could sit on this one. These two sides are not bases because they don't intersect with the height. This one intersects with the height at the top, and this one intersects with the height at the bottom, so that makes two bases. And then they went ahead and labeled this one as well. Since it's upside down, the top of it is the B2, or base 2, and the bottom of it is the B1, or base 1, because it's the same trapezoid as this one, except it's flipped. Then we still have our height. So here we have our two trapezoids that make one big parallelogram. A parallelogram is a shape that has two sets of parallel sides. Parallel means they don't intersect or don't come towards each other. So the top and the bottom are parallel here, and the left and right are parallel. A trapezoid is not a parallelogram on its own. The two together, when they're flipped like that, make one. But on its own, a trapezoid is not a parallelogram because if these sides kept going, they would eventually intersect to make a triangle. And a triangle is not a parallelogram. Some other examples that are parallelograms are rectangles and squares because all of their sides, their top and bottoms, don't ever turn towards each other, and their left and right don't turn towards each other. So squares and rectangles are parallelograms. And then our parallelograms could also look like this, where our left and right, they're going in the same direction. Our top and bottom are going in the same direction. So our formula for trapezoids, because a trapezoid works out to being half of a parallelogram, we're going to kind of break through it. And this is what the second image I looked at kind of had to it. It said area equals base times height, or BH. When we don't have anything in between our two letters in a formula, that means they're being multiplied. So area is base times height. This is the formula for a parallelogram's area. Area of a parallelogram. So, for example, if I had this shape here, this is a parallelogram, and I would multiply the height, so how tall it is, by one of these bases, and the base is going to be what intersects with our height. The other two sides on this formula we don't actually need because they don't intersect with our height. And part of why that works is if I took my parallelogram and cut this little extra piece off here and moved it to here, my shape turns into just a rectangle. And the rectangular formula is length times width, which is also the same thing as base times height. I didn't realize it was so cut off there. So the parallelogram formula is area is base times height. Then we have here on that picture A equals 1/2 times base times height, which is the formula for a triangle. The area of a triangle, and the reason that works is a triangle on its own is half of a parallelogram if it was cut diagonally. So if I had the same triangle flipped upside down and put them together, I have a little skinny parallelogram here. So they take the base and then they multiply that by the height of the triangle. And then they cut that in half because that triangle is half of a full parallelogram. And the same kind of thing works in the trapezoid formula. So the formula for an area of a trapezoid is 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. And base 1 plus base 2 are in parentheses, so you need to add your two bases first. This is the area of a trapezoid. And the reason this works is the trapezoid works kind of like our triangle here. If we had a trapezoid like this one in black, and then we copied it and flipped it upside down and squished them together, we get one big long parallelogram. And we add both bases because on our big long parallelogram, base 1 plus base 2 make the full base of the big long parallelogram. So if we do the height times the big long base and then cut that in half, then we get the area of just the one parallelogram we started with. So instead of having to draw it out and figure all that up, they have it simplified down to a formula that is 1/2 times the height of the parallelogram, the dotted line, the one that has a right angle attached to it, times parentheses base 1 plus base 2. So when we solve one of these, we need to do this part first. Then your third picture that I got had a trapezoid drawn on it. I'm gonna make some more room. So we had this trapezoid. And it was even labeled RQSP. The height is 16 inches. The top base, and they drew some arrows to show it was the top base, was 23 inches. And then the bottom base, they also drew some arrows here, was 30 inches. So with these numbers, we can plug this into our trapezoid formula that we just looked at. So the area equals 1/2 times the base times, 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. before we can do any math, we need to plug our numbers into the formula. So we've got A equals 1/2 times the height, and I'll use a little X here, times the height. The height was 16 inches, so 1/2 times 16. And then we'll do some parentheses. When you don't have a number or anything in between a number and parentheses, that means after you solve what's in the parentheses, you're going to multiply those two things. So in the parentheses, we've got base 1 plus base 2. So base 1, our top base was 23, plus base 2, the bottom base was 30. Now to solve this, we've got 1/2 times 16 times 23 plus 30, and those were in parentheses. We do the 23 plus 30 first because it's in a set of parentheses. 23 plus 30 is 53. And I'll leave the parentheses around it because it makes it a little easier to see the multiplication. And I'll bring everything else down. Now I'm going to go left to right on everything. So I'll do 1/2 times 16. And 1/2 of 16 is 8. And then I'll bring down my times 53. And 8 times 53 is 424. So the area of this rectangle or this trapezoid is 424 inches, and it's squared because the inside of a shape is going to be square units. If we were just measuring the outside of the shape, it would just be inches. But if I was, for example, going to put carpet or tiles in here, they would need to be square tiles. I wouldn't just use strips. I need actual square pieces, whatever size those squares are going to be. So that's why it's square inches, and the little 2 means square. And because you asked about trapezoids, I'm going to show one more example of a trapezoid. You didn't send me this one, but this is a bonus one. So here I have a trapezoid, and it may not be to scale, but it should work good enough for an example. So the height of this one is 10 inches. The top base of this one is 15 inches. The bottom base is 22 inches. Then they went ahead and gave us the sides, which are 12 inches and 11 inches. When we're given the sides on a trapezoid, if we're just being asked to find the area, we don't need those sides. So I could go ahead and mark those out. I don't need this, and I don't need this. Now I'll plug the numbers I do need into my formula. So A equals 1/2 times the height, which was 10. And I drew a dot for times. That's another way to show times. Times can be a dot, an X, or a set of parentheses around something, or a number or something, and then a set of parentheses. So 1/2 times 10, open parenthesis, our base 1 is 15, and our base 2 is 22. So 15 plus 22, close the parenthesis. Now I'm going to solve my parentheses first. I'll go ahead and bring down my 1/2 and my times 10 and my open parenthesis. 15 plus 22 gets me 37. Now I'll just multiply from left to right. I do 1/2 times 10 to get 5. And then that times 37. And 5 times 37 gets me 185. So my answer here, the area is 185 inches squared. And if you need any more help with these, or if there's another thing you run into that you need help with, just send me some pictures and I can do this again. Or if you want me to go a little more in depth, just let me know.